Why does it feel like in superhero media, aliens are only one of two things? Either it's a benevolent, human-like alien that just wants to help people, or it's an alien that wants to take over the universe and conquer everything. There's so many different interpretations of what an alien could mean in a superhero universe. And this alien is unlike any you've ever seen. Korg blasted the giant monster on the red planet. The monster roared. "More power!" Korg screamed, and his soldiers pointed the giant green laser at the giant rock slug. The rock slug bore down on them, its rows and rows of teeth eating some of Korg's men, and Korg held in tears, pointing. They fired the giant blaster at the rock slug, getting it right in its mouth. It was cooked from within and wasted away, dead. Korg and his friends mourned their colleagues. He tried to deliver a speech, but he broke down in tears. Even though he was one of the most powerful generals on his home world, everybody knew him crying wasn't weak. It was a sign that he cared. So few of the blessed men cared. They used to be a great people, but only a few, like Korg, truly remembered what it was like to conquer. And now, back in his ship, meeting with his advisors, he realized he couldn't conquer anymore. "What do you mean there's not enough fuel?" Korg said. His engineer looked to each other, then down at his feet. "It's fine," Korg said. "Tell me the truth. If we're in a bad situation that we can't get out of, you need to let me know." "I wish we could, sir," the engineer said. "We rerouted all of our power to the blaster to harvest a crystal from the slug." "I'm sorry," the engineer looked down. He knew that his mistake may have doomed Korg's entire infantry, and yet Korg put his hand on the engineer's shoulder. "You're a smart man, trained at the university." The engineer nodded. "Then you will think of a solution for this. Go." Korg sat at the head of his table and looked out at the stars. They had made it out of the orbit of the red planet, but now they were truly stuck. What was going to happen to him, his men? "Sir," one of his navigators said, "we can't get back home, but in a neighboring star system there is a planet. Small, primitive. Land there," Korg said. When he looked out the front deck and saw Earth for the first time, glittering and green, he didn't think of it as anything remarkable. "Their interplanetary capabilities are very primitive, sir." As the ship touched down in the Sahara Desert, Korg looked out over Earth's landscape for the first time. He didn't communicate with his soldiers. They all knew that he needed time to think. But Korg didn't have time to think. Within a second, Korg's blast shield was pierced by a fist, punching him in the face. Korg fell to the ground and struggled to breathe in the Earth environment when he overheard the screams of his men. "Help!" Korg said. His body was injected with many mutagens, and he could barely breathe in Earth's environment, but when he looked out over his ship, he was horrified. Every single member of his crew was dead, and standing in front of him, with lightning bolts painted all over his body, was a speeding superhero with a smile on his face, his arms covered in the blood of Korg's colleagues. "Are you their leader?" the speedster said. "Come with me." Korg couldn't believe what was happening. The man had moved more quickly than he had ever seen. He went for his blaster, but the speedster cut his arm off. Korg looked down at his arm and he couldn't believe what was happening. "I'll heal you up, no worries." The speedster bandaged his arm with a primitive earth bandage. "Come with me." The speedster led him to a jet, an insult compared to Korg's spacecraft, but there was nothing he could do. The speedster's men were already dismantling the spacecraft. "They call me Quick Man," the speedster said. "You're not going to fight back, are you?" Korg was in shock. He couldn't believe that all of his men were dead. And now as he sat in this cushy private jet across from the speedster, he could just barely breathe. "If I fight back, my odds of survival are non-existent," Quickman said. "Super speed is the best superpower. We tend not to interact with the other superheroes." As the jet flew, Quickman seemed oddly calm, zen, not interested in talking with Korg. "Have you contacted other members from outside the world?" "You're the first one," Quickman said. "It's okay. I have a basic understanding. Your species are weak and frail, and you use your tech suits to increase your capabilities. Is that right?" Korg looked down at the tech suit's functioning arm, then up at Quickman, making a quizzical expression. "Does your mind move as quickly as your body?" Korg said. "Good catch. Most people don't understand. Did you notice that I'm speaking your language?" Korg didn't. He was in such shock for how the speedster had killed his men that he hadn't even been thinking of revenge. The jet landed in front of a giant mountain. "May I?" Quickman said. Never mind." Quickman grabbed Korg's arm and pulled him inside of a cave, putting him into a prison cell. 4 other men, dressed the same way as Quickman with lightning bolts all over their clothes, looked at the alien. "What do you want to do about this?" Quickman said. The other speedsters looked at Korg and nodded. They left him in the prison cell. Korg lamented. He had lost so many men fighting the rock slug that he didn't even realize that his friends, the ones that he had traveled the galaxy with, were dead. And now he was trapped by some powerful creatures. They were supposed to be primitive, and yet they were so much more than he thought. Did this planet have a cloaking device? How was he going to escape? For somebody with so much brain power, Korg was surprised that Quickman didn't intuit that he could make it out of his suit. He pressed a button on the spacesuit and wriggled out of the body. Outside of the suit, Korg was only about 1.5 feet tall, and he managed to make it out of the prison bars easily. He snuck through the giant mountain facility until he came upon a room where Quickman was speaking. "We've always known an extraterrestrial threat would come. Our policy of non-intervention needs to end. We need to let the other superheroes and the rest of the humans know. We're not alone in the universe. There are other Conquerors." One of the other speedsters spoke up. "But what about our secrecy? Our pact?" Quickman nodded. As they kept discussing, Korg knew that this was his only opportunity to escape. They moved incredibly quickly. They were incredibly intelligent. But if Korg made it out of the facility, he could possibly escape. He walked down the hallways at random until finally he found a giant metal door. Soldiers with the lightning bolt tattooed on their foreheads ran past, and Korg hid in the shadows. The doors opened and a giant, futuristic car started to drive through them. Now was Korg's chance. He walked into the wilderness and made it out into the night. He was weak. His species wasn't supposed to be without their suits for so long, and yet he didn't feel good about what the speedsters would do when they found him. It was only a matter of time before they decided to kill him, and now he was alone in the world. It was dark, but the stars above were still shining. He looked longingly at the stars and wondered what all went wrong. All of his men dead, no fuel, no suit, no way home. And yet, Korg breathed in the air and realized, by some stroke of fate, the mutagens that they had injected before they left their homeworld made it easy for him to breathe. He sighed, sitting on a rock, looking out at the stars. And even though Korg wasn't a religious man, he prayed. "Now what are you doing over here?" Quickman said. He was leaning against a tree, bored. "I knew you would try to escape, but getting out of your suit was pretty nifty." Korg jumped off the rock, but Quickman grabbed him, holding him up, looking at him in the eyes. "You know, you're actually pretty cute when you're just small like this." He headbutted Quickman, breaking his nose. Quickman dropped him, and he tried to jump into the darkness and hide. Quickman grabbed him by the leg and shook his head. "That was a bad idea. Come on." Back in the prison cell, which was now the size of a small cage, one that Korg couldn't make it out of, all the speedsters stared at him. "He broke my nose," Quickman said. "I understand," the other speedster said, "but we can't just kill him." The speedster started speaking incredibly fast, so fast that Korg couldn't understand. But Korg asked a question that made them all stop. "Were you born like this, or were you made?" All the speedsters looked at Korg and smiled. "Very interesting," one of the speedsters said. "I told you he was intelligent," Quickman said. "We're not cut from the same cloth, but we can go the same speed. The way that super speed works is linear, but once you're so fast you can go between seconds, things get really strange. If we didn't have our coalition, we would lose dominance over the planet Earth." Korg looked between them. Even though they were terrifying beings of incredible might and strength, Korg raised an eyebrow. "But which one of you is the fastest?" Quickman turned, looking at him. "I am." The other speedsters immediately uproared. For how intelligent they were, Korg started to understand. They had incredible godlike strength, and yet they were still primitive. They still competed with each other. "No, I am," one of the speedsters said, and Quickman and the other speedsters started speaking angrily, making huge gestures. "There's only one way to find out," Korg said. "You're fast enough to circumvent the globe, are you not?" The other speedsters looked at each other and ran out of the room altogether in a second. Korg chuckled. He pushed his head against the crack between the bars, and his body malleated through it. He knew that escaping wasn't enough. He had to get back to his suit. He looked through the giant mountain facility. They would be back at any moment, looking for him, and found his suit under the operation of 3 of the soldiers. He knew that in his weak body, Korg couldn't fight his way out, so he had to distract them. One of Korg's species' greatest quirks is their ability to mimic voices. He put on the air of Quickman and started speaking with anger. "What are you idiots doing here? Check on the prisoner immediately." All the soldiers jumped. They looked at each other in terror and ran out of the room. And finally, Korg reunited with his suit, jumping into the cockpit, putting all systems online. The systems were only at 6%, but that was enough for a short jump. "Teleport," Korg said. The systems came online. "Are you sure?" it said. 1% power after. Korg confirmed it, and in a moment, he teleported back to where his ship was, in the middle of the desert. It was night, and the winds were rushing. If they were fast enough to circumnavigate the globe, it would be only a matter of time before they got back. Korg went to his ship. He tried not to look at the bloodstains of his colleagues, until finally he got to the cockpit. There was something about the speeding superheroes that made them different from the others. Conspiratorial. Korg had a feeling. He didn't understand humanity, but he did understand how men operated. Now was the time. There was no fuel to leave this planet. He had to stay. But there was one thing that Korg could do, one moment that he could truly take control of. Korg pressed the broadcast button. Every single screen on this planet was immediately taken over by the ship's camera, showing Korg's face. "Hello, people of Earth," Korg said. The translator inside the camera would have made everyone be able to understand his voice. "I have an inconvenient announcement for you," Korg said. "You are not alone in this universe. I am the last member of my flight crew. The rest of us were murdered by heroes with super speed. I beg of you, people of Earth. I need right now in this moment help. Help me, people of Earth. My life is in danger. My life is..." And as if perfectly on cue, the 4 speedsters burst into the room, attacking Korg. Korg used what he could to defend himself, putting his hands up, defending himself against the super speed attacks. They were breaking through his armor. All of his travel to the universe, and his suit was getting ripped apart until the speedsters stopped, completely immobilized. A woman with completely white eyes walked into Korg's ship. "Sorry about them," the woman said. She put her hand out. "I've immobilized their minds. I represent an organization dedicated to this planet's welfare. Come with me if you want to stay alive." Korg couldn't believe it, but he put his hands out. He looked at the immobilized speedsters. They were vibrating, breaking out of whatever mental control the woman had put him under. But Korg put his hand out. And Korg realized there was no going home. There was no fighting them. But there was this one opportunity to be safe. And maybe he remembered what it was like to do some good.